Hăīre, φίλε, and welcome. Today we're in John chapter 3. We're going to be finishing off verse 2 and also this page. Here is a rubric, everything that we're looking for as we go through the text. Let's go ahead and get started. Rabbi, oidamen hoti apot theu ἐλήλυθας didaskalos udesgar dunatai tauta ta semea poien ha su poies eon me ei ho theos met autu. That's as far as we're going to go. Our very first word is set off by a comma, and we know that this starts direct discourse because you've got a pen right there. This is a word that does not decline in Greek, so there's not really any indicators we can get for what form it takes. But based on its use in the rest of the clause, we should be able to figure that out. Let's go ahead and move on from it to oidamen, which is our verb. This mu, epsilon, nu right there is our personal ending. That's going to be a first person plural. This is from oida esomai. So that is, it's a perfect in form, but has present meaning. So the way that this word is normally used in Greek, it means we know, but what it technically means, what it comes from, is we have seen. And once you have seen something, you know that thing. So that's where we get the present meaning from the actual perfect form verb. Nevertheless, at least as far as I can remember, everything treats this as if it is a present. Active and indicative. We don't have any clear word that could be the subject of this verb, so that's going to be we knew. And then hoti just means that or because, and we'll figure out which one of those based on context. Apo is a prepositional phrase. ἐλήλυθας is a verb, so a prepositional phrase has to end right there. This is clearly taking the genitive case, singular and masculine. Before we translate that, and now we just need to look at this and figure out what that means, and then we can tell what the context wants this to mean, along with daskalos, which with this omicron sigma here is clearly a nominative singular masculine. It's teacher. So taking a look at this, first thing that we want to know is what does this come from? We've got our ending right there with alpha sigma, and it looks like we've got an augmenting vowel, which would then tend to indicate that this is a past tense. Well, what is the verb that this comes from? It's erkomai, eleusomai, ἐλήλυθα, so that does fit with the idea that this is a past tense. This augmenting vowel is in fact telling the truth. This is from a very irregular word, erkomai being a deponent, and then the stem changing drastically once we get to each of the different tenses. But these two together tell us that this is aorist. Alpha sigma is going to be the nominative singular form. Aorist. And then it is active in the aorist form. And nominative singular, aorist, active. I feel like I'm missing something. Oh yes, masculine. That's what I left out. And it is a participle. Normally we wouldn't expect to see an alpha as the vowel for a nominative ending, except with the aorist participle. It's always that with the masculine. For the middle passive forms of the present and the future participle, it's going to be an omicron because it's the normal first, second declension participle. And then for the third declension participles, it's normally going to be omega nu, when active that is. Omega nu for the nominative singular masculine. So aorist, though, is very different from that. So nominative singular masculine, aorist active participle, we know these two go together, spelled with an R. You have come, having come. Apothu, so then that's going to tell us location from, which since we have motion right here. From God. We know that having come a teacher from God, and then we enter a different clause right there. And with this context, we can look back at here and understand that the comma right there is actually setting off a vocative, a direct address. Teacher, and then all of this. But again, this doesn't decline. Not teacher, rabbi. And I don't remember how to spell rabbi in English. So I'll leave that as that and put a note. Sorry about that. Let's move on. After the colon, udesgar dunatai. Here is our verb. We've got the tau alpha iota as our ending. That's a middle passive ending. And this comes from dunamai, which is a deponent. So the middle passive doesn't matter as much. My a tai, that's going to be a third person singular present. Deponent, almost wrote active there. And indicative. And this means is able, has the ability to, is powerful, something like that. And we want to find an infinitive. Tauta, we've got a demonstrative there, article, noun. Here we have an infinitive. Epsilon iota nu. This is a contract. Poi eo, so that's actually epsilon iota nu. And then just smushed together. That's where the accent is stayed put right here. This is present. Active. Infinitive. And that's our technical ending. There. So, is able to do. And then we would probably take these, the ta from ho, he, to. This looks like an accusative plural, and semea right there. That's from semeon, a second declension neuter. So this alpha is either nominative singular, not nominative singular, nominative plural or accusative plural. Our verb is singular, and that doesn't necessarily prevent semea from being the subject, since plural neuter nouns can take singular verbs in Greek. It's weird. So we'll deal with that in a minute. Let's go back over here. Gar just means for, and then udes, our very first word, that comes from udes. And then what is the feminine form? Udes. I don't remember the feminine form, but it's like udes, uden, I think. And it means no one. And the epsilon iota sigma here is our nominative singular form. And it is masculine, so no one. And then since this is singular and nominative, it has to be the subject of this one, which then requires these three together to be accusative plural. Forget that we don't need those C's. Neuter together. For no one is able, these, the signs to do. All right, so that's that clause. Now we come over to here. Ha. This is from hos. If I could spell. There we go. Hos. He. Ho. Our relative pronoun. And this one is going to be the nominative or accusative plural neuter to match semea. So then we want to look ahead to the verb to see, is it a plural verb, in which case you went nominative. And looking at poies, epsilon iota sigma, there is a second person singular present tense from poi on that stem. Active and indicative. So then this has to be accusative, plural, neuter, pointing back to semea. And then su is going to be our nominative singular, which you, since we've got the pronoun there when we don't need it, I'm going to include the word yourself for emphasis. So that would make it emphatic. Do. Comma. So that's that clause finished on. We can move ahead. Aeon. Aeon is a marker for a special type of clause, hypothetical, so we should expect either an optative or a subjunctive. Were this classical Attic Greek, then optative would be a more likely occurrence, but since this is Koine Greek, optative is pretty uncommon. I think it appears in Luke more often than pretty much anywhere else, so we should expect a subjunctive, and we don't really translate that necessarily. May, that's a negative. Hey, not hey, no, that's not aspirated, so that's just a. It's circumflex there on aspiration, and then a sub-iota. There are a variety of different options for this, but one is a subjunctive verb. Looking ahead, ho theos, it's a nominative singular masculine. So there is our subject. The God met autou is a prepositional phrase, genitive, singular, and then masculine would have to go with oudes, referring back to that, with him. So then no verb over here, no verb, no, that's not a verb, that's obviously not a verb also. So then A must be our verb, and that is going to be third person singular present active from Amy, and it is subjunctive. And since we've got aeon right there plus a subjunctive, we will, instead of translate it in a subjunctive in English, we will just translate it like a normal indicative. That's the way that English handles it. And then aeon plus may means unless or if not. And is the understanding that this is hypothetical. I just misspelled that. Hypothet. However that's spelled. Oh well. So there we go. That's all of that together. Let's see what it says by itself. Rabbi, we know that, or because a teacher having come from God, no one is able to do these signs which you yourself do, unless, if not, the God is with him. So then this is the result of this clause here, and I forget what the appropriate terms are. Apodosis or prodosis. It's been too long since I've read that part of any textbook. So this is the condition, and this is the result of that condition. We have a present conditional, which again, the name of which I can't remember. That's something that I'll look up if I have time, and I should. And then I'll put a note to say exactly what type of conditional sentence it is there. But if this is met, then this is true. This is true, therefore this is true. So we know that, and the implication would be you have come as a teacher, or you are a teacher having come from God because of all this right here. All right, so that's all that. Let's take a look at it in its own context. But there was a man of the Pharisees. Nicodemus was named to him, of leaders or of rulers of the Jews. This man came to him at night, and he said to him, Rabbi, we know that, having come a teacher from God, for no one is able to do these signs which you yourself do, unless the God is with him. So that's it in its own context. And now there's just one final thing that we need to do, and that's take a look at this right here, as we've been talking about a lot since chapter 1. Do we want to translate that with an indefinite article or without an indefinite article? Only way really to tell is to translate it both ways and see which one makes most sense. So far, the way that the language has worked out in John, the indefinite article is something that occasionally shows up. However, with official titles, names, persons, indefinite article doesn't make any sense at all. And this one is going to be exceptionally difficult because it's a participial phrase. So I'm going to translate this, instead of the straight participial phrase, as a relative phrase. Who has come? Since we know that this is a predicate and not an attributive participle. With the indefinite article, we know that who has come a teacher from a God, or we know that who has come a teacher from God. So those are two different translations possibilities. I'm going to throw the word you in there just to make it a little bit easier on us. We know that you who has come a teacher from God, or we know that you who has come a teacher from a God. Now, back to what we talked about in chapter 1. One of the reasons why I don't think an indefinite article makes any sense here is because the Jews were monotheistic. They only believed in one God. There's that famous creed from the Old Testament. Behold the Lord your God, the Lord is one. Or behold the Lord your God, your Lord is one God. So they only believe that there is one God. Now they know that there are a lot of pagans around them with a lot of other deities, polytheistic deities. But all throughout the Old Testament we have a variety of different locations where the Jews, God himself, the God of the Jews, talks about these deities as being, well, I can't really use the appropriate word because it's inappropriate, but I think you get the idea. There's that passage in, I can't remember where exactly it is, but a man, he has some wood, and with the part of the wood, he carves an idol. With the part of the wood, he cooks his food and offers his food before that idol, and he worships before that idol. The gods of the pagans are deaf and dumb. So, there's no reason to believe, just based on the culture, that the indefinite article is appropriate here, since this is all Jews. Nicodemus is of the Pharisees. He is one of the rulers of the Pharisees. He knows the teachings of the Old Testament. Why on earth would he be in support of a polytheistic idea? Why would he even say a polytheistic sentence right here? From a God. That makes no sense based on his character and the culture around him. As for the language, the grammar in this specific clause right here, I'm not really aware of anything except right here, the God and the, I want to say Apodosis, but again, back to that note. Since there's a definite article with the God right here, the implication, since this is the setup, technically the way the grammar works, for this first sentence, it makes no sense for us to assume multiple gods here when we have specific God here. Inside the argument that he's setting forth, we have one God in this thesis statement, but we have multiple gods in this one. Logic doesn't work that way. You can't have a general and a specific for the same topic. Your logic falls apart once your terms don't match. So, logically, context-wise, society-wise, I don't think it makes any sense. Were this standing alone, then I think it would be a reasonable translation to include an indefinite article, but it's not standing alone. This is why context is so important. And I'm sorry I've rambled on so long and probably not been as clear as I should have been. I hope taking a look at all of this has been helpful for you, and I hope you have a very, very happy Christmas season on this, I want to say, it's Monday, so 6th day? Yeah, it's got to be 6th day of Christmas. There we go. Happy 6th day of Christmas. Hey, not asleep yet? That's okay. I've got tons of other videos that are equally sleep-inducing. Check them out. Alternatively, you could take a look at this video over here.